because I would very much like to have the rest of the day off. But we've been in the room, and you know, we've had some good stuff line up. We've still got some stuff that's making some sense. XRVs, you know, we had profit objectives on those. Apple right off the open, great opening trade. I popped a video up of Tesla. So Tesla, the volatility bands right off the open, you know, once again, bam, you know, just hit them right out of the opening. That's what you want to see. But, I beg you, be careful today because, you know, once again, at least they're not tweets anymore, right? At least we're not getting this stuff in the middle of the night. And your first time around, it was a little harder to negotiate some of the news that came out of Washington. This time we're getting, you know, much more predictable behavior, and things are sort of coming in ways that help us figure out what the volatility in the markets is going to be instead of, you know, making us crazy. So this time around, it's tariffs, and it's tariffs once again, 35%. And I've got a bunch of articles up on Trader Insight. If you go and look at the article archives, got some stuff up there about, you know, what's going on with copper. So I think the copper complex, the metals and mining complex, all that stuff is going to be pretty interesting going forward. You know, the Canada tariffs, obviously sort of an across the board kind of an effect on what's going on in the markets. And today in particular, that meant markets were in the box and lower, and you know, we had some really good trading opportunities this morning. So let's take a look at the charts and see what we've got on deck for the rest of the day. Here we have it. This is, you know, as I said, first off, you know, NASDAQ in particular is in the box. So this guy is tracking right between these bands. If you are looking to trade the QQQ or the NQ, I would just say, you know, stay on the right side of the central pivot. So the fulcrum for the day, 555.16 down to 553-ish on that green pivot line. So, you know, anywhere in that range, probably I would say 554.07 is the midline, and that's been a stopping place. You can see we've had it marked there in the room for some time, and that's been, you know, just a good trade. Apple this morning, this guy, you know, this was a narrow range trade off the open, but we still managed to catch that 209.93 inflection up to the green pivot, up to the first support level there. That was a good one. Then, you know, as it tracked higher over the course of the session, it had a nice initial move. You know, this made me think we might see some range on it. And then, you know, once it came back down and it you know, settled into this narrow range down here, it's kind of a no-go. So I think, you know, if you're looking to trade Apple, you're going to be able to find trades in there, but you have to load up the share size and kind of push the envelope in order to get anything out of it. Same thing's going on with Amazon. Amazon is just pretty much, you know, tracking between that volume-weighted average price. You can see it there. You know, it's kind of up and away from where our natural support and resistance was, so that's dragging it up into the range, and it's narrowing the potential for profitability of about 20 cents. So there's bigger fish to fry. You know, Google is tracking straight up and away. So, you know, this guy, if it comes back down into this 179.55 level, you've got room, I think, up to first resistance. So that'll give you room up into 180.28 on a pullback. I think a better pullback, 179.22, that's more orderly, gets you down into, you know, sort of a fib retracement, and I think that makes for a better trade. Meta has been all over the place. Now, there is some unusual options activity in Meta today, some pretty heavy options activity. 715.25 is down around that VWAP, but it's oscillating pretty heavily between 716 and 788. So I'm going to say if you're watching Meta closely, there's opportunities there. If you don't feel like being glued to the screen today, then, you know, I think that NVIDIA, Tesla, and a couple of these volume plays that I'm going to show you here are kind of the better bet. Tesla has been beautiful. So let me get the chart of Tesla and just make it a little bit bigger here. I had a session that we did just a little while ago where we went through and talked about the fact that, you know, Tesla ran the bands today, and running the bands is a beautiful thing. That's right from the trading plan from last night. So if you've got the volatility band trading plan, or if you'd like to see it, you can always just pop in for a 2-week trial of all this stuff. You can look at it, see if it resonates with the way that you trade. And if it does, you had the really good opportunity this morning to make some money right off the opening bell, because Tesla came down and just punched right into that central pivot. Anytime that the first volatility band is right around the central pivot, and you see that you had an inflection on yesterday's trading right at the same level, then you can expect to see moves back into, yesterday's bands. And when you get these moves that track like this, that's a great way to go and pull, move 306.21 up to 307.27, up to 308.52, up to 310.10. No problem. Those bands were all predefined yesterday. Then, we had this move up into this infield fly setup. Infield fly setup, that got you short down at around 310.75. And, depending on where you wound up, you either got out 310.10, anticipating the pivot line. I'm sorry, not the pivot line, the volume by price and the natural support and resistance line. Or, if you wrote it down into the VWAP, you got all the way down into 308.52. So Tesla's been real nice today, and now it came down, it inflected, it's trading very geometrically, right? So it got down into that central pivot. Now it's moving back up into 308.52. Bam, you got another profit objective, So these things are lining up really nicely, and if you look out here, you can see that, the volatility bands that we anticipated are lining up really, really nicely. The histograms are forming inside the bands, and when they do that, that just tells you, you're everything about what you're doing is right. So Tesla today has been sort of the gold standard for finding opportunities. You got Coinbase. If you're a coin person and you like to stay in front of opportunities of Bitcoin and Coinbase and all that stuff, you can see this one is also trading, a nice geometric pattern. It's not my favorite, but I know a bunch of you guys like to deal with it. If it comes back up into 387.30 or 389.20, I think it's a decent short back down into the pivot line. I'm not looking to go long this one today at all. And if you're looking at Coin L or Con L, right, the leveraged version of the trade, it's going to be hard to get short. So just bear that in mind. Sometimes those shares are hard to get. Then we've got some discretionary guys here. So MicroStrategy, this one has been pretty nice today. This is some unusual activity that we saw in MicroStrategy. Came up on some option scans, and you can see it is trading nicely when it gets into these ranges. So what this tells you is, especially when you see something trading around the VWAP, right, like this, right, where the VWAP is very much flat and sideways, and price gets down below it, we start to see acceleration higher again. Price gets up above it, we see some acceleration back down again. So somebody's out there working an order. Somebody's got a buy side order in and a sell side order in, and my guess is they want to be a buyer below that VWAP, and when it gets up above there, they're going to sell it down from that 438.43 level, and try to get it back down closer to 433. And then you can see, the tell here is this and this, right? So those are the levels that tell you there's something going on. There's some heavy volume trying to push things and pull things and get things to get track right inside to that volume weighted average price. So that's going to be an opportunity for you if you want to sit and really consternate over one stock. That's a good one. That's a good one to look at. We got Robinhood. So Robinhood here. This is just a pretty classic setup as well. So you're staying above the VWAP for the most part on the session. You can see the pushes and the pulls back down around it. I think it's gonna stay up above there for the rest of the session. I don't think that the buyers on this one are probably gonna go away. So the opportunities are gonna be on the long side. Mostly gonna be watching for anything that tracks back down into that anchored VWAP from earlier in the session. And also, if we can get back down, as long as we stay in this brick right here. So if we stay in this range, if we stay locked up in that volume by price data there, then I think, you know, any move that gets back down into that 99.55 area, that's got the potential for like $6 of upside. But at the very least, it's got potential back up into the spot 46 level. That's up at the first resistance, that blue line on the chart, right? So this line right here. So that's definitely going to be someplace that price goes and inflects if it gets there. And if it doesn't get there, if it just gets back down to there from above, I think that's also a good place to try to pick off just sort of a long side entry if you are looking for a tighter scalp. So you'd have to just stay on top of it, make sure that you know, you're looking for the opportunities when they're right in front of you. Micron and Advanced Micro, they're down on the bottom here. Remember, you know, these guys are going to be sensitive to whatever's going on in the semiconductors and the semiconductor holders. So much you know, less predictable in terms of just sort of trading on their own. You need to keep the picture in front of you of what's going on in the broader markets, what's going on with the semis, you know, and where sort of everything is tracking over the course of the session. And then you can go pop over there, see if one of these is lagging, see if one of these is leading, and you know, look for opportunities. In the case of Advanced Micro Devices, I'm going to say 143.94. It has to get back down to that pivot line before I'm interested in it. And on Micron, you know, if Micron gets down into the central pivot, it hasn't inflected there yet today, but I'm betting it will. And if it forms an infield fly setup, if we get something that you know, leaves a opens and closes in the bottom of the range, leaves a tail to the upside, looks like this bar might be the one even, then we're going to look for a short, right? If this bar would leave a big tail here up above the this line, up above this 124.02 line, and the open and the close be down in the bottom, then we would look for a move back down into 123.53, I'm sorry, 123.53 on the downside there. So it gives us lots of stuff to consider over the rest of the session. And, you know, I think that if you keep your eye on the ball here, it can be a pretty good Friday afternoon. All right, so that's going to do it for me for today. I hope you guys are having a great trading day. You sent me some good questions yesterday about what we were talking about. If you have questions today, again, Adrian@traderinsight.com. And you can also shoot me a text, 310-804-2248. That's usually the better way to get a hold of me. You know, let me know that you want to talk about something. Let me know that you have a question, and I will get back to you just as soon as possible. Have a great day and a great weekend.